Matthews, welcome to Backcover News. How are you today?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm very, very well. I really appreciate you joining me today. I'm very fascinated about your book, and I look forward to hearing all your thoughts and asking you some questions. So I'll dive right in.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, I guess my first question, Peter, is I wanted to know, obviously your book is The Elixir Effect. I wanted to know in your words what the book is about and what inspired you to write it.
The book is about one man's journey to uncover the truth behind his identity, both as a bisexual man and as a man in the world. So he's lived his whole life, and then a couple of events happened in his very early 40s, wherein everything that he thought to be true and tied up in his identity was kind of tipped upside down. And then the book is about his uncovering and sort of rethinking and remembering his past and try to redefine himself in light of this discovery.
Amazing.
And yeah,
Yes.
what caused me to write it was it's a very true story of events that happened to a very real person who had reached out to me to help tell this story, and that's how the book came about.
Wow. And what's the response been?
Overwhelming. Yeah, the response has been really like I would call it very compassionate curiosity from people who do not identify as bisexual or on any of the LGBTQ plus spectrum of identities, which is my background. I identify as a straight cisgendered male, but also extremely supportive from members of the bisexual community and the wider LGBTQIA plus community. It's been really exciting to see people identify with parts of the story that resonate with them and with their lives. My client and I both knew that there was a universality to the story that would reach beyond the specifics, and it's just been fantastic to see that connection made with so many different people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's pretty interesting that, you as a straight man wrote this, book that I guess, is aligns with the LGBT community. So is that something that, did you sort of consult that community or, seek inspiration from them in particular, or is it just sort of something that created yourself?
Well, I've certainly been an ally to that community, both in Canada, where I'm originally from, and more recently here in Australia. For my entire adult life, I trained in theater, and so I was, the representation in live theater and media is pretty high, much higher percentage than other professions that I found. So I've been very close to that community. So, but this was the particulars of this story was uh, my client's very recent discovery. So he was also very new to this world and this identification and what it meant. So we were able to go on a journey together of discovering it. But in answer to your question, yes, there was reaching out with organizations like the Sydney Bi Plus Network and different individuals who do identify as bisexual to sort of talk, ask questions, get clarification, understand the best language to use. And then, but then all of the repercussions of the event in my client's life, and as it spills out into his life as a husband, as a father, as a son of parents, was something that I was able to relate to very personally as well. So didn't need to research a great deal around that. Yeah, a lot of
Wonderful.
connection. Yeah.
That's great. The book delves into a very personal journey of sexual identity and masculinity. In your view, what is the significance of bisexual representation within the LGBTQ literature, and why do you think this facet of identity is often underrepresented or misunderstood in both media and society?
Yeah, it is equally underrepresented, I think, in the world of literature and film. All of the stories that we tell and we grow up on, as it is underrepresented in real life. Um, I don't know exactly why. My best guess is that we human beings are very comfortable with really clean binaries. So you're either straight or gay. You're either
Yeah.
male or female. You're more masculine, you're more feminine. And so anything that falls more in between these things, as all of our experiences, every individual is very complex. People are complex. We don't fit into the boxes that we've ironically set up for ourselves. These tropes or these identities as a way of navigating through life. Nobody really fits into any of those very, very cleanly. So,
Mm.
like many great books that have gone before, um, this is a story of somebody whose real life struggles and successes fall, not through the cracks, but sort of between the rims of the boxes that we've set up. So, and I think if every individual would probably say the same thing. We are a lot more complicated than the easy identifiers that exist out there would lead us to believe.
Yeah, so true. The LGBTQ community is incredibly diverse, yet stories often focus on certain identities more than others. How do you think novels like The Elixir Effect contribute to creating a more inclusive and nuanced representation of LGBTQ experiences?
Well, like I say, it goes back down to an individual story, right? And the more honest and real we try to make that story, then the more complicated it's going to become. So, um, within the LGBTQ community, bisexuality it can also be thought of as a much less visible identification than gay or lesbian would be, for example. If
Mm.
you see two people in a relationship and they happen to be of the same sex, it may be easy to assume that the couple is gay or lesbian, depending on the gender identification involved. If you see two people in a different sex relationship, you may assume that they're straight, and they're if you're coming from my perspective, it's easy to assume, oh, they're just like me. But a bisexual identity does not necessarily broadcast itself as visibly as the other sort of two, the L and the G of the LGB, sort of start to the alphabet identifiers there, not as easily spotted, which can create. I know from conversations and interviews, can create a lot of stress, anxiety, inner turmoil for somebody who identifies as bisexual. And the pressure comes from, both within and without the LGBTQ community for, something that is a little bit more, I don't know, comfortable in our way of seeing the world. You've got to be this or that. And
Yeah.
that just helps us all get along a little bit better. So it's a tough one. Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely obsessed with labels.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I can see why, right? Because there's so much information and so many things to navigate as we go through this thing called life, as Prince would say, and we we need a shorthand to help us sort of leap from stone to stone. But when we stop and connect with a person on a person-to-person individual basis, we find that all of those things may have been helpful to get us to that point, but the real discovery and surprise and beauty is in connecting with somebody individually and finding out who they are and how it resonates with who you are. And that is, I guess that's one of the goals of the book, is to help start those conversations on a person-to-person basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Masculinity is often framed as in a rigid, conventional term. Through your protagonist, Daniel Molina, you explore the intersection of masculinity and sexual fluidity. What drew you to this theme, and what message do you hope readers take away regarding masculinity's evolving definitions?
Well, so the character Daniel, he grew up and went through life with a very particular definition of what masculinity is, and unfortunately, what it is not. And that's all fine and dandy, however limiting that can be, until something comes up in your life that challenges it. And it may be how you identify masculinity. It may be how you identify as as a professional worker in your field. It may be how you identify as a parent. All of these things that we've identified with, they all serve us well until something comes up, either from deep inside or from forces outside of you that makes you go, oh, wait a minute, that it doesn't fit this way anymore. So masculinity, unfortunately for many of us, can be a very constraining, confining, sometimes almost a straitjacket that tells us what we shouldn't do more than what we should do. And that creates a lot of conflict. And I certainly, in my, privileged white, cisgender, straight life, I'm kind of at the top of the cultural food chain, and I've experienced that many times, certainly growing up and in my life from, all the role models that have been presented to me. So, masculinity is one of those identifiers that deserves to be challenged more often. And, unfortunately, we can be very afraid to do that. It does require a great deal of bravery, and it's going to really turn your world topsy-turvy once you do it.
Certainly will. You've blended literary fiction with memoir-style storytelling. How did you navigate the personal elements of this story, and did you encounter any hesitations or challenges in sharing such a raw personal narrative?
No great challenges. I mean, like I said earlier, that's where all the real good sort of juicy bits lie, is the deeper you get into it. I'm fully aware that I am dealing with somebody's very real experience and fears and anxieties and blissful moments that they're not mine, and so I feel entrusted with them, and I mean that in the truest sense of the word. There is a great deal of trust and by extension a great deal of responsibility to handle these experiences and these memories with a great deal of empathy and compassion and care. There was one point where I was able to have a conversation with my client's mother over a Zoom call, like you and I are talking right now, and she had said she clapped her hands together and she said, "Please promise me you will honor my son's truth." And tears were sort of coming down her cheeks as she was saying this, and yeah, it was just a very, very strong and timely reminder of how delicate and fragile and vulnerable these things can be. At the end of the day, I just considered it a great honor to be able to work on somebody else's stories so deeply and so beautifully.
Yeah, well said. Last question. Literature has long been a tool for social change. How do you see novels like The Elixir Effect contributing to LGBTQ advocacy and challenging societal norms?
Wow, thank you for putting the name of my book in that category. Reading is a very personal experience, right? Reading a novel is something that we do on our own. It's very private, and it's become more private now if we choose to read something on an ebook. So there's not a title and a spine for the rest of the world to sort of peer over your shoulder and go, "Oh, she's reading, this." So that very, very personal experience, I think, puts you in direct contact as as a creator, as a writer in this instance, with a reader, with your audience. And then I think that kind of, if it strikes a chord and if it resonates with the reader in that very private moment, that gets carried on. And that private moment, then you're sort of moved to share it. Until the book becomes a multi-million bestseller, not very many people, like if you read it and go up and say, have you read The Elixir Effect? I'd really love to talk about this moment. Somebody's going to look at you and go, I've never heard of it. Unlike a movie that everybody would have seen. So I think what happens is that we start having conversations about ourselves and about something that was triggered within ourselves from this reading experience, that then we can, say, hey, I was reading in this book about, a moment where this man confronts his father about something in his past. And it made me think about my father. Have you had that experience? And so it happens in really, really small, but extremely powerful ways, right? It's like splitting an atom. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny particle, but the immense power behind it when it's opened up is massive. It's so effective, such an effective way to, I think, bring about real change. It comes, from the bottom up and from the inside out. And before we know it, there's a bit of an evolution, if not a revolution, sort of going on in, I think, hopefully a very positive direction.
Yeah, I think so too. Peter, where can people find the book? And if they want to reach out to you, where can they reach you?
TheElixirEffect.net, thank you. And there's an email address if anybody wants to reach out to me or members of our, marketing team, contact at TheElixirEffect.net. And that's ELIXIREFFECT. Yeah, Elixir Effect.
Fantastic.
And they can
Thank you
follow
so
us
very much.
on Instagram, and you can search for the book itself on your friendly neighborhood Amazon.
Yeah. And did you say Instagram, is it at the Elixir Effect, or would it be Peter Matthews?
At the Elixir Effect.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Peter. It's been an honor speaking with you, and I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Have a great day. Bye.
Same to you. Bye-bye.